everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for our season launch. I am here with our literary manager, Todd Brian Backus. Say hello, Todd.
Hi, everybody.
And the cast of Almost Maine, and we are going to be your hosts for this evening's launch of our next season. So, Sam, say hello.
Hi, everybody. Zooming in from Queens, New York. Good to see you.
And how about Ray?
Hey everybody, I'm coming to you live from beautiful downtown Burbank, California.
And Kathy.
Hi guys, I'm zooming in from Duxbury, Massachusetts.
And last but far from least, we have John Cariani.
Hi everybody, I am zooming in from the Bronx in New York City.
And now I am thrilled to share with you the season we had planned. And I hope that in the future, we're going to be able to bring it to you. Whether we can do it exactly the way we're laying it out, time will tell. So let's let the tape roll. Hope you enjoyed that video. My marketing team has been working so hard to create it, and we just loved it. And whether we can get there exactly the way it looks like it is in the video or not, I'm looking forward to bringing a huge portion of it to you next season.
Yes.
And now I'd like to introduce everyone who is here to tell us about these shows. From Ring of Fire, I'm joined by Scott.
Hi.
Scott, where are you joining us from?
I am joining you from the lovely Bronx in New York, but I'm originally from Litchfield, Maine.
For Perseverance, we're joined by Callie.
Hi everyone. I'm coming to you right here from my home in Maine, just across the bridge from Portland Stage. I'm glad to be a part of this.
For Crucible, here's Sally, Keith, and Vanessa.
Hi guys. Saying
Hi everybody.
Beautiful Portland, Maine.
Yes.
We're in Portland, Maine, loving it.
For Senior Living, I'm joined by Tor and Lisa.
Hello.
Hey.
Coming to you from Brooklyn.
And for Sabina, here's Willie.
Coming to you from Wilton, Connecticut, but I'm an honorary resident of Deering Center.
And the cast of Almost Maine is going to join me to share information about Talley's Folly and The Cake.
Nice.
And now, Todd, can you tell us a little bit about some of these shows? Let's start with Ring of Fire.
Ring of Fire was created by Richard Maltby Jr. and conceived by Bill Meade. From the songbook of Johnny Cash comes this unique musical about love, faith, struggle, and success, rowdiness and redemption, and the healing power of home and family. More than 24 classic hits, including I Walk the Line, A Boy Named Sue, Folsom Prison Blues, and Ring of Fire itself, performed by a talented cast, paint a musical portrait of the man in black that promises to be a foot-stomping, crowd-pleasing salute to the unique musical legend. Ring of Fire features Broadway and national tour performers, including Maine native Scott Moreau, who starred in Maine State Music Theater's $1 Million Quartet and Walking the Line.
Hi, Curt. Hi, Scott. It's so great of you to join us here today and to talk a little bit about the musical that we were planning to do this summer. So, Curt, can you share a little bit about what's happened?
Well, needless to say, we were so excited to share that fantastic title with Portland Stage in our annual co-production, and especially to have Scott star in it. But as fate would have it, this COVID-19 crisis is telling us we're going to have to wait a year. So there's nothing much we can do about that. But we will continue to look forward to it. Let's put it that way.
And Scott, what is it like to be portraying this American icon in Ring of Fire on stage?
I've been a huge fan for a very long time, and I mean, it's just an honor to be able to be him on stage and to bring back such pleasant memories for so many different people through his music and through his message. It's not something I take lightly. I take his legacy and his music very, very seriously. It's just an honor. I've been such a big fan for so long. I really do consider it at this point my life's work. I've done it, so many different places, and the response to his message and to his music is pretty astounding.
And Curt, Scott has been up at Maine State Music Theater being Johnny Cash in other shows there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I can tell you that the combination of Scott's talent and performance as Johnny Cash and Scott as a human being is about as good as it gets. And that is proven by the fact that there's 100 to 200 people waiting for him at the stage door every single day after every single performance. I've seen Scott play other roles, and he's a fantastic actor in and of his own right. But I've also heard some people say, well, he got lucky in that he has everything that Johnny Cash has. No, that's Scott the actor and Scott the historian that has delved into this man in a way that has allowed him to create the persona of Johnny Cash on stage in a way that very few others, if any, can do. And he deserves the credit for that.
I am so excited to get to share this with our audiences, Curt. And I know that we're going to have to wait a year, but it's going to be something to really look forward to.
Indeed. Indeed it is.
So we're going to go back to Todd, who is going to give us some information about Perseverance.
Perseverance by Callie Kimball is a world premiere play commissioned by the Maine Women's Suffrage Centennial Collaborative. In the fictional town of Hillcroft, Maine, a 19th century African-American schoolteacher is determined to elevate her students. 100 years later in the same place, a white teacher is running for office. As the two stories intertwine, ownership of history takes center stage.
So, and with Perseverance, we have Callie Kimball, who is the playwright who is joining us. Hi, Callie.
Hi, Anita.
It's so great to see you.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
And I'd love to know a little bit about what it was like to be writing a piece where it is set in August of 2020, and that's yet to be, and the world has changed.
I know. The last time I touched the script was February. I did a deep revision, and just weeks later, the whole world was different. And I think before the pandemic, there was an oblique reference in the play to the influenza pandemic of 1918. One of the characters, Judge Elmer, his wife dies from the influenza, but that was just a light mention. And so now with the reality of in the 2020 timeline where we have a candidate running for office, the reality of social distancing and masks, that now has to inform that person's campaign, Dawn's campaign. So now instead of having in-person rallies, they're now having outdoor events and Zoom fundraisers. And so the story is the same, but now there's an extra layer of relevancy to the 2020 timeline that I'm still figuring out. So I'm looking forward to revising the play with you next week.
That's great. Yeah. What's wonderful about working with a living writer is that you can say, we're here right now, and what should it be? How should we change it? So how many workshops have you done on the piece, Callie?
Well, that's a good question. I know that we did the very first read with you and the cast. It was a closed workshop to hear it out loud, and that was maybe a year ago now-ish. And then we read it, part of it at the governor's mansion in Augusta. So I did a little bit of polishing for that. And I did another draft. And then we did the reading in November at Portland Stage on the main stage. And that was great because I got to hear it with a large audience. But I have not heard it since then, since November. And I've done a deep revision. I plan on doing work next week. So it's definitely still evolving and growing.
That's wonderful. And I know we commissioned you to write this play about the women's suffrage events, which are right now, it's 2020, and this is the centennial of women's suffrage in the United States. And so can you speak to how this piece does resonate with now, both with that and I guess where we are?
Sure. We have these two different time periods, and it's the situation where a lot has changed, but a lot is still the same. Some good, some not so good. I mean, we have issues of inequality in education and of race issues in the U.S. Those are still very urgent and very present. And, the things that Dawn in 2020 and Percy in 1920 are so passionate about, I'm passionate about those things too. And, right now with the pandemic, we have children who are being denied equal access to an education because they live in rural areas with limited internet capabilities, or you have children who maybe there's one device in the whole house and they have to share with other, with siblings who also have classwork that they now have to figure out how to do online. So there are challenges around the inequality in both time periods that are very synced up right now specifically.
So you are working on this project with Jade King Carroll, who has directed several times for Portland Stage. She did Skeleton Crew and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and she herself loves digging into the history of things. And I wonder what that relationship is like, because it's the first time that the two of you have worked together.
Yes. So I've been an admirer of Jade's for a while from a distance, and had heard great things about her in terms of working with new plays. And, a director who is good at a new play environment is a very specific type of person. And so from the first time we talked, I just knew that it was going to be a really strong and candid collaboration. In this relationship, there's really not room for ego. Like, I can't say, oh, but this is what I want for my play, because I have to put it on the page, and then she has to take it and interpret it, and the actors interpret it, and the designers interpret it. So she helps me sort of see what is and what isn't on the page, because I'm going to have blind spots of my own. And so that relationship is really important, to have someone where there's mutual respect. She's so smart and very thorough, a very deep thinker as well. And so I love talking to her, and not just about the play, but just sort of socially, just getting to know her a little bit has been really great, and important to have that connection. She and I are both sheltering in place alone right now too, so we sort of have this really interesting relationship right now, working on the play, but also just connecting as human beings. And so I'm really glad to be working on the play with her.
So thank you so much for joining us. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
The next show Todd's going to tell us about is The Crucible.
The Crucible by Arthur Miller. Arthur Miller's classic tale based on the Salem witch trials and the Red Scare gets a contemporary brush-up as rumors of witchcraft in an isolated community lead to deadly accusations.
So I am so excited to be joined here by Sally and Keith and Vanessa. And Keith is the artistic director of Dramatic Repertory Company, and Vanessa is his wife, and she's along to help him out with some creative expressionism if we need. So Keith, can you talk a little bit about what your role is with DRC?
So I can help interpret. I'm Vanessa, Keith's wife. And yes, Keith had a stroke about 5 years ago. We started DRC in 2010.
Yeah.
And Keith has been the artistic director and also directed many of its productions. And almost 5 years ago, in September, it'll be 5 years,
Yep.
Keith suffered a massive stroke. And it has been a long road, and it's been incredible because we've had so much support from the theater community,
Yes.
exactly the people that Anita was talking about, this wonderful Portland local scene. He has now what is called expressive aphasia,
Yeah.
which means that he understands everything you say to him, and he actually knows what he would like to say back to you. He just has difficulty getting it from up here out his mouth.
I understand what are saying, but have trouble teaching.
So he understands what you're saying. He just has trouble speaking. So I'm really here just to help interpret things that he's saying, or to say them a little clearer so people understand. But we're so excited to be here. And since the stroke, Keith has actually been able to return to directing.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons we're just so honored to have been asked even by Portland Stage to be a part of this, because I think they understand that even though this major event happened, DRC is still a strong part of the theater community, and we have no intention of sitting quietly.
So Sally, since Vanessa sort of teed you up, what is it like to be working for two companies you know so well?
Oh, I'm so excited, Anita. This is great because I know that you've been talking for a long time about wanting to do a big cast show with Portland-based actors, and DRC sometimes wants to do a bigger cast show that are, we're limited in the amount of people we can use as well. So this is a great way for the two companies, I think, to really support each other beautifully. And I'm just so excited because I think that we're going to be able, what DRC brings is kind of an aggressive slant, I guess, would I say, or some kind of energy that'll feel different on the Portland stage, main stage. Typically, we produce in the studio. So it's just, there's so much to be excited about. And yeah, I'm thrilled because I love both places. And it's like, well, of course, and so there's this thing of it just feels really right.
That's fantastic. So Keith, can you talk a little bit? I mean, Sally started to talk about the work that DRC does. Can you explain a little bit more about the types of plays that you tend to do?
I can say that DRC's mission is really to present challenging works that engage the heart and the mind. Our mission has always been to expose new works, perhaps overlooked theater, and also to bring a fresh perspective to classic works like The Crucible. So it was really exciting to be presented with an opportunity to do really a masterpiece of American theater, but in the grander space that Portland Stage can offer. We, like Sally said, we produce a lot in the studio theater, which we love. We love its intimacy, we love its flexibility and seating and presentation. But when everything you do is, 2 and 3 and 4 characters, things tend to be on the smaller side.
Yes.
So a chance to bring it to classic work out into the big space is really excellent.
What is it like to create art in this community of Portland, Maine?
It's the best. Portland is the best. It's very funny because I would put up the Portland-based talent against New York-based talent, against anybody pretty much, I would say, worldwide. And that's, I think, what Vanessa was saying, which is the heart is in the right place. And I think sometimes as theater people, we can do theater for the wrong reasons, which is, who's going to come see it? And my agent, did this and rah, rah, rah. And that makes it just a different experience. And people in Portland, Maine that is not why we do theater. We do theater because the story is so important, or because it's really important to work with this person and to share this experience with this person. And it's so wonderful because then the community at large gets to know us as people. It's like I go into the grocery store and someone's like, hey, Sally Wood, and we're both wearing masks. And it's like, hey, and they're like, you don't know me, but I saw you do X, Y, and Z. And that's really special because it connects us in a way. And I feel like not only do we get to connect with the other artists who are on stage and the designers who have brought everything else, but we really get this intimate connection with the audience as well. And that you just can't buy that.
You're right, Sally. It is really special. Thank you so much for coming in to talk to me, Sally, Keith, and Vanessa. And up next, Todd is going to talk a little bit about our production of Senior Living.
Senior Living by Tor Hyams and Lisa St. Louis will get its world premiere at Portland Stage, a play about people dying to live. In a retirement community in Riverdale, New York, seniors contemplate life's most pressing issues: sex, golf, and rice pudding. A talent show sets the scene for vignettes that debate what to do with the time we have left.
So I'm joined here by Tor and Lisa. They are the co-writers of Senior Living. And this script came to us from my dear friend, John Cariani, who is also a dear friend of theirs and who has done a lot of work with them. So Tor and Lisa, would you be willing to share a little bit about how you met John and what sort of relationship that is?
Yeah, John was introduced to us by a mutual friend named Cindy Rush. She's a casting director. And she just thought that our sensibilities would match up. And we actually ended up meeting him after, this is when he was in Something Rotten. So we ended up meeting him after a performance, and he took us to the place right next door, and you have to walk up a bunch of stairs. And I was already kind of enamored of him from the show because he was so good in that show. And we get up there and he goes, well, I'm really glad Cindy introduced us, but I don't really write musicals, but we can just hang out and talk.
We've been hanging out and talking for about 5 years now.
Yeah, that's right. But we did end up working together, and we, of course, first read Almost Maine, and we realized it originated at Portland Stage, and we were kind of blown away and vastly intimidated after we read that play. We said, wow, we think we're good musical theater writers, but we're not at his level. That's what we thought. It's just such a work of art. And he's like, no, you guys don't feel like that because you guys write great songs. I want to be at your level. And so we were like, really? Okay, that's nice. But it ended up to be this wonderful collaborative relationship. And we've been working on a couple of different pieces for the past, like Lisa said, about 5 years on and off. Yeah.
So in Senior Living, there's music, but I wouldn't call it a musical. So can you speak a little bit to what that is for you?
Well, the origination of the idea, the germ of the idea from the get-go was I was doing I guess you'd call it my one-woman event, because I don't want to call it a
We don't say one-woman show because that sounds ugly.
It's an event. It was an event. And we were doing it at a senior living it wasn't a nursing home. It was like in Florida, one of the big ones where they've got the golf carts rolling around and they've got the hired in, talent coming from all over the world. And so we were hired to do my show there. And Tor and I stepped on the most enormous stage you could imagine. And just he and I.
Broadway size
my
stage.
My little ukulele and his piano. Yeah. And there was probably 700 people in this room watching. And they were all at their tables, and the woman came out to introduce us, and she said...
Well, backstage, before she introduced us.
Before she introduced us, she goes, now, I'm going to introduce you guys and do the show, and then we're going to serve cake after. And I said, no, they can eat their cake during the show. It's fine with me, it's fine. She goes, no. If we serve the cake before you end, then they will all leave. So they're here for the cake. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And then we had to go out and do the show. And it was crazy. crazy. And
True story, by the way.
And that was the start of this idea. Like, this is the most bizarre but wonderful but truthful moment. And it was that. And 2 years later, he wakes up one morning. He goes, Lisa, I just wrote 25 pages of a play. He goes, and it's like vignettes, kind of like Almost Maine, but it just came to me, and it's about, being of a certain age. And I was like, why don't you go ahead and write this play? I don't need to write a play.
Yeah.
This is
true
yours.
Also true story.
This is yours. And then the next morning I woke up and I wrote the entire monologue of it.
Thank you so much for joining us. And now back to our host from Almost Maine. John, you were the one who suggested senior living to me. So I want to hear from the horse's mouth. What is it that made this show feel like a fit for Portland stage?
Well, I think you asked me a while back. I was asking you, what are you looking for as an artistic director in your programming? And I think you mentioned that you were looking for, I think you were working on your new Christmas show. What is it, The Snow Queen? Is that the show that you developed?
We did that a while ago, yeah.
And that was to provide a counterpoint basically to Christmas Carol, right?
Absolutely.
And then you said to me, and we're looking for romantic comedies, and specifically romantic comedies that feature mature people or stories about mature people, like people over 60. And she said, do you have any interest in writing? I think you said, do you have any interest in writing a romantic comedy for older people? And I just kind of felt like, I don't really know. I don't dream on love stories between older people. That's not where I was. I wasn't there yet. I often feel like I don't write I write what I know. So I usually write about 7 years behind myself. Does that make sense? That seems to be what I do. And then, I started thinking about what you were talking about how, I think you said something about how older people, mature audiences, they're the people who have time and money, and they're the people who go to the theater but I think sometimes when you're, audiences at the theater tend to be a little more mature, a little older. Sometimes they miss seeing themselves on stage. And I've talked to a lot of older actors who are tired of playing Alzheimer's patients, cancer survivors, because when you're 65 or 70, you're not dying, you're living. Do you know what I mean? And so what I loved about Senior Living was that it's kind of a collection of stories, not unlike Almost Maine, in that it's a loosely linked collection of little stories about these people who live in a nursing home. And it's about them falling in love, losing someone, dealing with their kids. It's very funny. It's kind of about home and family. And I think we haven't really in the theater or in art taken much interest in home and family. And I think home and family is a very valid component to art. We haven't really examined that much. We've done politics, we've done war, we do all the hard stuff. And then I feel like we don't take home seriously. And that's one of the things I liked about it. I think, and I know Tor and Lisa, they wrote it. They're just friends of mine, and they've written a lot of musicals. And we were working on something together. I was helping them with the book of a musical. And I mentioned, I think, to them that they said, we want to write a play. What should we write about? And I said, older people who have lived and who aren't sad and who are multidimensional. Mm-hmm. And they came up with this, and it's got a little bit of music in it. The through line of it is a talent show that they're throwing at the senior living home, and it's really the senior home, and it's really sweet and funny. And it's not cloying, it's not sentimental. It's pretty hard in places, but it's a comedy. It's funny, and it presents multi-dimension. It's like multi-dimensional representation of people we don't usually see represented dimensionally. Does that make sense? I've been talking about that with rural people for a long time, but if you think about the older people, they just don't see themselves the way they see themselves in real life. And that's what I loved about it. And and Tor has the best tagline for it. It's a comedy about dying to live. And I just love that, because that's how we should think about people who are older than we are. They're living.
They are. They are. That's incredible.
So John, when we were doing the interview with Tor and Lisa, we asked them to see if they had a question for you. And what Tor's question to you is, so when are you going to give us feedback on our most recent edits on Senior Living? You cannot continue to edit the Almost Maine novel anymore. It's already published.
Well, I think they're giving me a new version of the script soon, and I'm going to take a look at it because I have time to. So that's the other nice thing about being an unemployed actor is you suddenly have time.
I think what he was saying, John, is that he's given you a copy and you haven't responded. So
Yes, I'm so bad. I'll have to look and see. I didn't realize he's already given it to me.
To John's credit, as we said before, he's still editing the play Almost Maine. So about the book.
Turning it into a puppet show?
Yes.
Yeah. Working on the puppet edition.
Don't you have the 4th edition coming out? Is that what's happening?
The 4th edition will be coming out, and I'm
Right.
going to reflect the changes that we made in Portland.
Yay. And the puppet show that will also be
And we're adding the puppet show scene, yes.
So thank you for sharing that insight, John. Now, Todd, can you tell us about the next 2 shows in our lineup, The Cake and Talley's Folly?
The Cake by Becca Brunstetter is a play I've been dying to do. Della's dreamed of baking a wedding cake for her best friend's daughter, Jen, but when Jen comes home from New York City with a female fiancé, Della doesn't know what to do. This deliciously funny comedy examines what happens when what we believe comes in conflict with those we love.
It's funny how cake plays a role in a couple of our shows this season. Now, how about Talley's Folly?
Talley's Folly by Lanford Wilson. Matt Friedman's surprise visit at the Talley household seeds dissent in the aristocratic family. Sally scuttles him off to the boathouse to persuade the would-be suitor to leave. What unfolds is a personal story deeply entwined in the history of our nation.
I'm excited to see that. The Cake is another piece of our season. And when I read this play, I've got to say, as I was reading it, Sam and Ray, I thought about the 2 of you and imagined the 2 of you there's a couple in the script.
Yeah, Della and Tim.
Yeah. And like I was like, they are you, you are them. So that's my dream cast. And it's a comedy about a very American issue and what you do when your morals and your heart are in sort of conflict with one another.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask what it's like to work on a play that is about big issues, but it is also a comedy.
I think comedy is really effective at tackling big issues. So comedy is effective at tackling big issues because it lets down the audience member's guard.
Yep.
Right? Everybody gets distracted by the comedy, so you can slide in a message. And especially if the comedy is well written and everybody gets a chance to laugh at everybody else, and it almost brings everybody together. If it was presented dramatically only, the theater might divide into 2, if you could imagine, but the comedy brings them together so that everybody hears the message, and I think they leave talking about the message just as much, if not more.
Right. Well, to me, issue plays are very important, but topicality isn't enough. Do you know what I mean? It's just not enough. The play has to be entertaining as well. So I think that's the wonderful thing about disguising it in a comedy, is that you can laugh all the way through and you can laugh on the way home. And then when you're kind of laying in bed that night, you can be like, oh, so, well, what about that scene that happened in, you know? So I think it's incredibly important.
I love what you said, Ray, about issue plays divide audiences in 2, or, in parts.
Mm-hmm.
And the comedy.
They do.
What'd you say?
Yeah, they do. And speaking of plays that talk about people that don't get represented on stage, Southern Americans with conservative values.
Yeah, exactly.
Do not get represented on stage except in these broad caricatures.
As fools per the people who are making those shows, which
is why this play is so lovely.
Yeah.
The playwright Becca Brunstetter, she's a fantastic writer, and I was, and she's Southern too. So Sam and I both being Southern, we could probably rattle off 40, 50 families we know who personally we know who have dealt with these issues.
Well, we know these people, Ray and I. I think that's the thing about it. We know who Della and Tim are. This is our mom and our dad and our grandparents and our aunts and our uncles and our cousins, and we understand.
It's pretty obvious that Becca does too. And I, like Sam was saying, I was really excited to see how well represented the conservative side of the argument, if you will, was. And it was because that this isn't. This is a tough thing to market. Because it doesn't really do the play justice to just say it's about this particular issue, even though that is what it's about, but it's about people. And that's very apparent when you read it. These are real characters that are, boom, immediately identifiable. That's why we can laugh at them, because we know exactly who they are when we very first meet them. And then we feel very close to all of them by the end of the story, to the point we are conflicted. We're like, well, I don't know whose side to take, and is there even a right side to it? It's well done.
And that's how you should leave the theater feeling, I think, because actually Becca Brunsetter, who, writer and producer on This Is Us, she's Southern, as you said, right? And she wrote this play to explore the relationship with her parents, because her parents fall way to the right in terms of like conservative values and their feelings on this actual issue. So she wrote this play, not maybe in response to that, but to explore that relationship with them.
I think one of the beautiful things about The Cake is that it is high. There are sections of it that are highly theatrical and hilarious, but you're also taking a woman who you think you're going to know everything about, and you watch that woman consider in real time, her situation and question her, what she thinks she knows and what she thinks she believes. And as a result, questions her relationship and her purpose and her work, all in a very funny, loving, compassionate way. But you watch someone, it's not actually divisive. You're watching kind of an opening. And I think that's one of the things that's so beautiful and rare about that play.
She's saying no because she has been told her entire life that she's supposed to say no.
Yeah.
That she's supposed to feel a certain way. So she comes to this reckoning, which is so beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that those reckonings come slowly. And I think in our world, we're very impatient with people who don't change their mind quickly. And I feel like it takes time to unlearn something you've learned your whole life,
Well, that's what the character of Jen talks about. And I love her monologue about
being in two worlds.
In two different worlds.
About being in two worlds? Yeah.
In other regards, I experienced that as somebody who did not grow up in a big metropolitan area, grew up in a rural community, and moving to the city. There's just so many layers that I think, even if this isn't a hot topic issue for you, even if you feel like you have the most kind of even liberal view of how all this should work, that's represented in the play too. There's a great spectrum from end to end, with the two really main characters being somewhere around here, represented in this play, that is quite remarkable.
I don't think we have an appetite for division right now. We get enough of that in the news. I think that this to consider an issue with love and compassion and humor is the great power of this play, and I think it's so desperately needed right now.
So can we talk a little bit about Talley's Folly too? And so Talley's Folly is another show in our season. And just as I'd love to see Ray and Sam back at the theater in The Cake, I've handed Talley's Folly to Kathy and her husband, Dave Mason, who our audiences have seen on stage numerous times at Portland Stage. Because when I read Talley's Folly, it was a play that reminded me of the two of them. It requires just real amazing acting talent that they both have. And this is the sort of thing, dealing with this pandemic, having a couple work on a play together is a way that maybe we can see our way through some of this.
Yeah.
So Kathy, what do you like about this play, or what do you think of this piece?
Well, this play is new to me, actually. So that's very exciting. And it, piggybacking on the idea of courage in The Cake, I find this play to be an extraordinary story about courage. it's also theatrical in that the male character addresses the audience, and it takes place in real time. It's 96 minutes, 97 minutes. So it kind of sets the audience up for, to hope for something to happen in that space of time that they know is going to be very short. And it's just a heartbreaking, beautiful piece about two people who believe that love has passed them by. And culturally, they're sort of discarded because they're past marrying age, and they each have their own personal pains and secrets as to why that is. And they are people doing the best they can in environments that don't support them. And it's a great discovery for me. It's a beautiful, magical, heartbreaking story about hope and mercy and forgiveness for oneself, and the potential for love. It's really beautiful.
And if we had to do it, we could Zoom it from your living room. Just you and Dave.
It's interesting that you say that it's heartbreaking, because to me there is so much hope in it, and who knows? And I think that we're left sort of hanging at the end, not quite knowing. And
I think it's the ache of the things that we all believe, the stories we believe about ourselves that hold us back, and whether those two people can move forward with the help of each other. That's kind of the at least at this early reading, that's the question that I think is going to be so exciting to explore, to see how they help each other see the best in each other, and to hopefully find love.
Yeah.
So I've never seen it. Have you guys? Has anyone seen it?
I saw it in college.
Oh, okay.
It was one of the first plays that made me think, that's what I want to do. I don't know what that is, but I want to do that. You know what I mean?
Very funny too. It's very funny. Yeah.
And very sad.
That's important too. People are going to just want to laugh after this is all said and done.
Yeah.
So, and Kathy, do you think having just read it, do you think it feels relevant to where we are today in any way?
Yeah, I think, the play takes place right after World War II. And I think it asks us, who are we post-crisis? Who do we want to be? How do we take care of each other? Are we going to come together, or are we going to keep our cultural divides? It's a play that takes place with people reeling from a major global crisis. Yeah. Just for a first reading.
That sounds pertinent.
So, and what would it be like to work on a show with Dave, with your husband?
We have actually worked together, I think 9 times. Once at Portland Stage in Last Gas. We love working together. We really, really love working together. And I have to say, we typically spend most of our year apart. And now that we are in this particular situation that we're in, we've been under the same roof now for 9 weeks, which is a rare and wonderful treat for us. And one of the things we've talked about is that we don't want to go back to being apart all the time. So the idea of doing a play together at Portland Stage is like the biggest gift we could be given. Yeah, we really, I think as much as a new playwright and a new play cracks open different parts of you, and you discover pieces of yourself, it's also kind of an amazing experience to see different language and a different person on your partner. And that also cracks open parts of them that maybe you thought you knew, and facilitates dialogue that you wouldn't have in your regular life, that you would have in an artistic setting.
Thank you, guys. We'll bring you back after this next segment to see what you've been up to and to discuss the state of theater during the pandemic. But now, back to Todd to tell us about our last show in the lineup, Sabina.
Sabina by Willie Holtzman with music by Louise Beach and lyrics by Dara Cloud. This moving new musical illuminates Sabina Spielrein, a patient turned doctor unfairly sidelined to the margins of history by two famous men in her field of psychiatry, Jung and Freud. Mark the centennial of women's suffrage with a journey through melody and song to discover this truly remarkable woman.
Thanks for that, Todd. I am joined by Willie Holtzman, who has been at Portland Stage many, many times. He is a dear friend. And we are so thrilled to be bringing Sabina to Portland Stage. We were supposed to have it happening at the end of this season. And Willie, can you talk a little bit about what happened and what our plans are moving forward?
Well, what happened is happening to the world at large. And because my good friend Anita and all of Portland Stage have very large hearts, they didn't abandon us and rescheduled us for a year from our original date, and the show is going to be even more brilliant with that extra preparation time.
That's wonderful. So Willie, what inspired you to write this story about Sabina Spielrein?
Well, we have to go back to ancient history when my beard was not even white. Many years ago, my wife was an editor at Random House, and they remaindered the books that didn't sell, and she brought home this book called Secret Symmetry, which was about Freud, Jung, and this obscure person named Sabina Spielrein. And around the same time, these producers I know wanted to commission a play from me about Freud and Jung. And I said, well, I've got a counter offer for you. And I told them about Sabina, and we never looked back from there.
And so why turn what was a great play into a musical?
Well, I think we have to look at my friend Louise Beach for that. Louise was in her third or fourth year at the BMI workshop. I think at that juncture, they're supposed to take on large projects, whole musicals, and she came to me and said, I want to adapt Sabina. And I said, that's a terrible idea. Even though her father was a Jungian analyst, who, by the way, officiated at my wedding, and had lots of interconnections there. And but of course, being an artist and a smart person, she didn't take no for an answer. And then we got our good friend Dara Cloud involved with writing the lyrics, and the rest is history. It did turn out to be a very wise choice on Louise's part, because I don't have extensive experience with musicals, but they tell me, the characters begin singing when ordinary language no longer is enough. And that describes so much of Sabina's story. And it turns out to have been a natural for a musical. I take no credit for it.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get invited to come and see a reading or a sing-through that you were doing in New York City, and I was just spellbound by the material. The music is so beautiful, and it doesn't sound like the sort of story that one would make a musical about.
But as we talked with you, Anita, and because you just lose perspective when you're working on a show so long. And as you explained it back to us, it's a very contemporary story, even though it takes place in the early 1900s. So many things that are so current now. And Sabina, without a spoiler alert, was a pioneer in ways that are just so relevant to our times now. So it just happened to be that special kind of story.
Wonderful. Can we talk a little bit about what it is about why it fits this moment? And I think you can be a little bit more explicit in what you're saying, Willie.
I don't have to be too coy.
No, I think
Sabina Spielrein was a daughter and an affluent mercantile family in Rostov, Russia, and had profound psychological problems, and her parents sent her to what was then a very progressive psychiatric hospital, the Bergozli Institute in Zurich, and their head resident was, I think their second in command was Carl Jung, She happened to go there at a time where Jung was very much taken with this brand new branch of psychology called psychoanalysis. And he made up his mind that she was going to be his first private patient at a time when Jung was very aware that Freud was shopping for an heir apparent. Freud was older, and just given the politics of the time, he felt a Gentile heir apparent because of rampant anti-Semitism in Europe. And all this came together, and Jung did have striking results with Sabina. They also fell in love. And that was a no-no then, as it is now. And I don't know how much further to go with this from there. But what is it? Is it an intellectual story? Is it a love story? We think of it as a love story with brains, because these were three extraordinarily intelligent people, some of whom made some very bad choices.
Well, Willie, we cannot wait to see you up here.
You guys are the best. Thank you for having us.
Anita, what phase is your reopening in? Because here our theaters reopening are in what's called phase 4, which is the last phase. Are you as well?
Yeah, we're in phase 4 here as well. And that's not going to be for a while. I think we're going to be stepping through and seeing how phases 1, 2, and 3 go. There are no protocols right now for stage 4, for phase 4. But I've been working with a lot of the other larger theaters in Maine and other arts groups. And we're getting together and we're coming up with all the questions that we feel we need to have answers for before we reopen. And what we're looking to do is get those questions together and then get some experts in to work with us so that we answer them in a way that's going to work and talk to the state of Maine and make it something that we're all doing as a collective instead of everybody going off and doing their own thing.
Right.
That's smart. It also seems like it helps the patrons know what to expect no matter what venue they go to or how many they attend.
Absolutely. It's that way. If you're going to Ovations or you're going to the Symphony or you're going to Portland Stage, you know you've got to wear a mask. You know how close you will be to other people when you walk into the space. So there's just systems in place that I think will help us all be more effective and make people feel better about things. The other great thing about this state is that it's small. Yeah. And so we can connect to people. We can talk to the governor. We can talk to people at multiple levels, up and down, both from the city all the way up to the governor's mansion. We have access, and that's going to help us as a state really work together to do things effectively.
Well, plus Mainers are at a clear advantage because everybody already owns multiple ski masks.
And they have to wear them for most of the year, right?
Right.
That's how we do in the Northeast. It's what I did last week.
This is really just an extension of the winter. Really.
There you go. That's a great way of thinking of it, Ray.
Well, I think I read somewhere that Maine's this because it snowed in May, there's a potential for there to be only 3 snow-free months in Maine this year. Because sometimes it does snow in September in northern Maine.
And this is why we need entertainment to come back sooner.
Yes.
Correct. What are we all doing? We are at home. What are we doing? We're watching Netflix and Hulu and all the things.
Listening to music and
reading books.
And people are going to be so ready to go out again, I think, when the time is right.
To have a communal experience. We're so isolated as necessity dictates, but the idea of coming together again is just...
I mean, we're all so wary of it. Anita, did I read that 84% of your subscribers turned in their what is that? Can you explain what that was again?
In March, when the governor said that venues like Portland Stage shouldn't be operating and we stopped performing, we were in the middle of Native Gardens. And so we were able to film that show and get that out to patrons, but we lost 2 shows at the back end of our season. And we asked subscribers, we said, we'll refund your money, but 84% of the people who subscribed to us actually said, we would like to donate our tickets back to help support the theater. And that it's so generous, and it's really a huge help for us. And part of what that made us do is when we've been approaching this whole launch and next season, we've made this all-in category for people who really want to support the theater that we know love us. You can go ahead and subscribe, and we're going to bring you whatever we can, whenever we can, in whatever form we can. But if we can't, you can turn that subscription back into a donation and really support us during the time when we can't be here. So that's an option. But I also know not everybody can do that.
Mainers are friggin' awesome, by the way. I just want to say, but I don't know about, I'm on unemployment, you know, like most people. What are y'all doing for, you know, for say those of us who have limited financial means right now?
So Sam, what we're doing for people like you who really don't have the means to lay out a lot of money is that we're offering a small package membership so that you can say, yes, I want to be there for you, Portland Stage, and put down just a tiny amount of money, and that lets you buy tickets at the subscriber rate, and we'll save your seats for next year. And we know you're there and you're with us and you love us and you're trying to do what you can, and you can buy tickets whenever you want. And if you can't, or if you don't want to, you don't have to.
That's incredible.
How much, Anita, like, I'm just curious, like, what do you, like, how much do you get from ticket sales? Like, how much of your budget comes from, like, is supported by ticket sales? I'm just curious, because I don't really know how that stuff works anymore.
You know, it's a pretty high amount for us. It's about 65% of our budget comes from ticket sales, and that's, most theaters of our size have a far greater contributed number. So it means that it's quite a climb to get there.
Okay.
Wow.
And what are, like, what kinds of things are you planning to do as Portland Stage Company, like, before you can be what Portland Stage Company usually is, which is a theater producer? Like, are you planning any programs, events? Like, I'm just curious, what are you doing?
Well, we are trying. We're hosting events like this one that you all so graciously are a part of. Every Saturday morning at 10:30, we do our Play Me a Story program that's free, and it's on Facebook, and you can join us live. It's amazing. I go on and watch it, and you see people from, Tom Ford was on the other day, and it's just people from all over who tune in to see the show, and it's great fun. And all of that material then gets captured on our website too, if you're not a big Facebook person. So you can go in and see a lot of the educational programs we're doing. We're running a whole bunch of camps for kids virtually right now. So there's a teen Shakespeare company. My son's a part of that, so I get to hear him upstairs screaming at the Zoom happening. And in the next couple of weeks, we're doing a whole series of readings. We're trying to do our little festival of the unexpected virtually, and got 2 readings for that. And Perseverance, which is part of next year's season, we are going to be doing 2 different small readings and discussions with the director and the playwright, because it's a new play that's in process of being created.
Oh, we need to find out about that. That'd be fun to sit in on. I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Almost Maine cast, thank you so much. I would like to thank all of our subscribers who donated their past season's passes back to us. We truly appreciate it, and it's been so useful, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next season. Goodbye, and thank you to the cast of Almost Maine and all the creative artists who have joined us for this event. The box office will be reaching out to subscribers individually to find out how you would like to manage your subscription. And if you're a current subscriber and you know what you want to do, you can click the link below and you can do it right now. Thank you so much, and hope to see you again next season.